So a few years back, I want to say post 2020, the Washington State Criminal Justice Training Commission changed the entrance physical for the Basic Law Enforcement Academy, which by extension drove police agencies to change the test they use for new hire candidates because it had worked for decades that those were the same. And so Washington State Criminal Justice Training Commission's reasoning for changing the test, eliminating the mile-and-a-half run, eliminating the 300-meter sprint, was that what the purpose of the physical test was to gauge a candidate's ability to safely complete the defensive tactics portion of the Basic Law Enforcement Academy injury-free. Is this person in decent enough physical shape that they can go through the defensive tactics portion, which is arguably it is the most physical part of the basic academy. It's your fighting, it's your standing fighting, your ground fighting, your grappling. It's the physical portion.
Baton use and all the things.
Does this candidate have that basic physical ability? And so because of that, people who are critical of the change say that the test has become much easier. And we have seen far fewer people failing this test. But I don't want people to think it's nothing, because it is still I want to say it's about 25 push-ups, which some people are going to struggle with, especially when they know that this is a proctored test to be done a very specific way. You must, and you should watch the video, and I'll let you touch on that, but there is a very specific way. You must go down to the ground to a 4-inch cube or whatever the measurement is. You must go all the way back up. You may not rest in the down position. It's very specific the way they want you to do this. So if you haven't been practicing push-ups, it's going to give you trouble. Sit-ups, same thing. Your hands must be locked together behind your head. You must not break pinky contact. You must go all the way up. Your hands must touch the ground at the bottom. You may not rest in the down position. Like, they are very specific, and there's no wiggle room. They're not going to count reps that don't meet the standard. And then the third element of the test. So you have push-ups and you have sit-ups. And the third element is what they call squat thrusts. And so the best way I've described squat thrust is a burpee without the push-up or the jump. So it is from standing, you go down to a plank position, and then return to a standing position. So it's a burpee without a jump at the end or whatever, the clap, and without the full push-up. So you're just plank to standing, and you're doing 35 of those in 3 minutes. And so this is the portion of the test that I say it will smoke you a little bit. Like, you're going to be winded if you're doing it at 35 in 3 minutes. It's no mile-and-a-half run, but if you aren't prepared for that, or you've never done those, and if burpees smoke you, these are going to be kind of tough for you. And so talk a little bit about the day of PSTs. So your show up, you're at the physical agility test portion of PST's test, and they're explaining the test to people, and go.
I talked to one of the proctors of the test at one of their events a year or so ago, and one thing that struck me, I remember going up to talk to him, and I asked him, "Hey, how many people are at this test?" Because there were supposed to be like 100 seats, but it doesn't feel like there's 100. And he said, yeah, about a quarter of the people don't show up. They'll pay their money and just not even show up. They'll ghost it. And he goes, you want to hear another 25%? I go, what's that? He goes, 25% of the people that are here taking the written test aren't going to go past the physical test, which is the one we just talked about, which kind of shocked me because a person knows ahead of time this test is coming and has an opportunity to prepare themselves. You should know before you go there that you're going to pass this test. Don't wait for that day. And as he's telling me this, he goes, I could kind of pick him out of the crowd too. And I'm thinking, like, is he just profiling people like, oh, this guy's got a beer belly or whatever, like, your noodle arms, not gonna be able to do stuff. He's like, no, it's not that at all. He goes, I'll ask people, because he proctors the physical test, and he's like, he'll make a statement along like, I'm sure you guys have watched, or who here has watched the training video, the video that tells you how we're going to do what we're going to do. And he says you just watch people look at their shoes, look down, and like in disappointment, like I didn't even have the 5 minutes in my life to go watch this video. I spent 4.5 hours on TikTok, but didn't have 5 minutes to watch their A to B to Z how to do this physical test. And he says that about a quarter of the people, give or take a couple percentage points, won't pass on game day.
Yeah. It might have been the last podcast or the one before that. I was making an observation about those sorts of people, the unprepared person, the person who's not giving it their all, the person who's hoping for a 70%, and then when they fall short, they're surprised when they failed. And I was deliberate, and I'm going to be deliberate again. I don't like the idea of referring to it as kids today, people today, because those people were around when we took our tests. Every generation has had weak, unmotivated people. One of our favorite essays that we like to refer people to, Message to Garcia. And that's from 1899, and it's talking about that person who lacks work ethic, who lacks preparation, who wants things handed to them. And this has been since the dawn of time, since the beginning of man. There have been people who aren't going to give it their all. And so we see a lot of candidates come through who are just absolute rock stars, who are 22, 23 years old, who put 22, 23-year-old Brandon to shame. And they're just studs, men and women alike. And so it's not a fair assessment, not that you made it, to say kids today, because there are some hardworking folks out there. But there are also some weak, unprepared turds.
That's a fair assessment, yeah. The last test that I went to, there was a guy, I could tell he was a CrossFitter from across the way because of the CrossFitting stuff he was wearing. And he was asking, he walks up to me, sees me, he's like, hey, do I need to change? Will there be time to change? And he's wearing sweatpants. Like, you're going to be okay. Yeah. Like, I'm going to make this assessment. You're going to be okay. Have you ever done a burpee? He's like, and he tells me, I've been practicing with burpees. Here's what I've been doing. And I can do about, 40 or 50 of them in the time.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, you're going to be fine because you're not even going to do a full burpee. And he's like, he's questioning me, are you sure I don't have to do a full burpee? Yeah, it's just a plank. And he's just shaking his head like, and I tell him, don't worry, look around. 25% of the people aren't going to pass it.
So we've talked about the written test. We've talked a lot about public safety testing. We've done a lot of background on how to prepare for the test, for a career. We've talked about what the physical agility test is and what that day is going to look like. And so after all of that, public safety testing, the company we use in our region, is going to compile all of your scores, combine them, and they're going to send it to the agencies that you've applied for. And so we get, after a test day, we get a list of scores, just raw data. From those passing scores, our city's human resources department is going to invite individuals for the third phase of the initial application testing process, which is the oral board interview. So you sit on oral board interview panels. I don't personally sit on those, and so I'm curious your perspective on what you've seen that is good, what stands out, what makes the best candidates, and I'm sure it's a mix. What is like absolute failures? Some stories that you have from both the good and the bad. And so, but first, let me just lay the groundwork for what the oral board interview looks like at our agency and what I believe it probably looks like at most agencies. And that is, a candidate is going to come in dressed for the job they want, which is not shorts and flip-flops. At a minimum, it's slacks and a shirt and tie, a suit if they have it, borrow one, buy one. It's not Romeo's and hickory shirt, which is fine, but it's not the job. You should be in a suit and tie is what I'm getting at. A shirt and tie at a minimum. Okay, so you look the part, you walk in, you got a haircut, you've shaved your face, at least your neck and your cheeks, and you walk into a room where a panel of interviewers is sitting. It's going to be potentially uniform officers, non-uniform officers, a human resources representative, and it's going to be all people from our agency. Let's just say four probably, three people that are going to ask you a series of questions. These are strangers to you. It's going to be intimidating. You are going to be sitting across from them. Some of them will be writing notes. And I don't want to sugarcoat this. This can be a very nerve-wracking part of the process for people, and and for many candidates, it's the make or break moment, right? Written test we've talked about is a basic aptitude test, general knowledge test. Most people with general intelligence, they're going to get over that hurdle. Basic physical fitness, you're going to get over that hurdle. The oral board interview can be an intimidating process, and it's make or break for some people. So you sit on those. Talk a little bit about it.
The oral board is your time to tell your story about why you're in front of us here today for this oral board. And we do appreciate that it is nervous. We all went through the process, and it's a hot seat that you're sitting in. And best thing you do: compose yourself, deep breath, prepare yourself that you're going to have questions. It's okay we allow note-taking material if you want to bring a pad and a pen in. I would suggest that. That way you can write down a thought that you may need to come back to. We ask 13 questions. It's a timed period, and each question, it's trickery because each question has multiple points within it. You'll listen for the ands that you will hear in questions. We may say, tell us about this and this and this.